The film opens at a state penitentiary where inmate Roy Lambert is finally released after serving his sentence. The story then shifts to Grace Baker, who is visiting her sister's grave. Moments later, she picks up Roy, her late sister's former boyfriend, and together they set off. On their way, they encounter Toby, Grace's half-brother, and bring him along. United by a shared purpose, the trio heads out to begin their covert mission. The trio proceeds to a secluded residential estate, where a violent confrontation erupts with the security personnel. When the dust settles, Grace apprehends the lone survivor, Dr. John Keats. After assuring him that he will not be harmed if he cooperates, Grace interrogates him about the fate of her sister, Bridget Baker, whom Keats was the last person to see alive. Keats calmly reveals that he has already triggered the security alarm, and reinforcements are on their way to rescue him. The film then shifts to Sheriff Ben Watts, who is enjoying a quiet moment with his longtime girlfriend, Marisa Lewis. Their peace is interrupted when young Deputy Kyle Rutledge arrives to pick up the sheriff and escort him to a meeting with his father, Charles Rutledge, the town's influential mayor. Kyle receives a dispatch call reporting an armed break-in at Dr. Keats's residence. He immediately relays the message to Marisa, instructing her to check on the situation at the doctor's home. Meanwhile, Mayor Charles Rutledge is contacted by FBI agent Laney, who informs him that the captors holding Dr. Keats hostage have just reached out. Agent Laney informs him that she has formally logged the case according to protocol, meaning the scene must be secured before the FBI arrives shortly. Sheriff Ben Watts volunteers to handle the situation personally. Accompanied by Deputy Kyle, he heads to Dr. Keats's residence to take control of the unfolding crisis. Kyle stays back in the patrol car while Sheriff Ben approaches the house to negotiate with the captors. He asks whether they are seeking money in exchange for Dr. Keats's release, but Grace firmly responds that they want only one thing, an answer to who killed her sister. Sheriff Ben explains that he investigated the case and determined that Bridget simply went missing. Roy immediately challenges this, insisting that Bridget was last seen entering Dr. Keats's home and would never have simply run away. Grace gives Sheriff Ben a strict ultimatum. He has 30 minutes to uncover the truth or Dr. Keats will be executed. Returning to the patrol car, Ben informs Kyle that the captors are demanding answers about Bridget Baker. Kyle suggests they should storm the house before the situation escalates. Ben then radios Marisa Lewis, revealing that Dr. Keats is being held hostage by Toby Cavendish, Roy, and Grace Baker. Ben instructs Lewis to move to the forested side of the lake and establish full surveillance over the property. Inside the house, tensions rise among the captors. Toby suggests torturing Dr. Keats by cutting off his fingers to force a confession. But Roy strongly disagrees, sparking a heated argument between the two men. Keats taunts Roy by claiming that Bridget never loved him, triggering Roy's memories of their past moments together. The film then shifts to a clandestine militia group led by Silas, who receives a call from Mayor Charles assigning him a new task. Back at the house, Toby grows increasingly anxious about the reinforced security door. In an attempt to force entry, he plants and detonates a C4 charge, but the door remains completely intact.
After relentless interrogation, Keats finally admits that the only person who can answer their questions about Bridget Baker is Charles Rutledge. Sheriff Ben immediately contacts the mayor, urging him to speak with the captors and resolve the situation without bloodshed. Charles, however, resists the idea. Sensing his hesitation, Ben presses further, demanding to know what Charles really knows about Bridget Baker's disappearance. Charles insists that Ben should trust the conclusions of the original investigation he conducted and warns him that the FBI will arrive in 45 minutes. Back at the patrol car, Ben tells Kyle that when he ended the search for Bridget Baker, Charles coldly told Roy that Bridget was better off dead, a remark that enraged Roy enough to punch him. Back at the lakeside, Lewis moves into position, awaiting Ben's orders. He instructs her not to fire until he gives the signal. Moments later, Silas and his militia arrive at the property, ordering Ben and his team to stand down. Their sudden involvement frustrates Kyle, who feels the situation is spiraling out of control. Ignoring protocol, he decides to take matters into his own hands. Silas deploys a surveillance drone to scout the perimeter, but Grace quickly spots it and shoots it out of the sky, escalating the tension even further. Dr. Keats then claims that Sheriff Ben knows exactly what happened to Bridget, insisting he saw her that night in his cruiser. Ben firmly denies the accusation and offers a different account. During the investigation, he had listed Roy as a primary suspect. When Roy assaulted Charles, it gave authorities a convenient reason to imprison him, and shortly afterward, Charles ordered the investigation closed, claiming it was necessary to keep the community safe. Roy finally admits that Charles had framed him and that he had nothing to do with Bridget's death. When Charles arrives at the scene, Ben informs him that Kyle has already entered the house. Enraged, Charles lashes out, calling Ben incompetent and a disgrace to the community. In a fit of anger, he summarily dismisses Ben from his duties as sheriff and orders his militia prepares to launch an assault on the house. Toby finally manages to breach the vault door and descends inside, armed with a flashlight and a pistol. In the dimly lit underground room, he discovers a man bound to a pole and another working in a makeshift laboratory, packaging illicit materials. Despite the incriminating scene, Dr. Keats adamantly denies any involvement or wrongdoing. The militia advances on the house, preparing for a full assault. Inside, Grace and her team take defensive positions as gunfire erupts, quickly cutting down several of Silas's men. Amid the chaos, Kane, the militia's second-in-command, breaks through and corners Grace at gunpoint, ordering the others to drop their weapons. Kyle slips in through the back door and manages to get the drop on Kane, holding him at gunpoint. In a swift maneuver, Kyle pulls Grace out of harm's way, giving Toby a clean shot. Kane is taken down instantly. Grace quickly restrains Kyle, but before she can question him, Kyle's phone begins to ring. She answers, only to hear Mayor Charles warning that if they harm his son, none of them will make it out alive. Meanwhile, Silas radios for reinforcements. Within minutes, additional militia units arrive, surrounding the house and escalating the standoff to a new, dangerous level. Inside the house, Dr. Keats finally reveals the truth. Bridget is dead. He explains that everything they discovered in the basement had originally been her idea. Inspired by Toby and Grace, who had always found joy and purpose in their own pursuits, Bridget sought to create a cure that could help people. But her work was hijacked by a cartel, which forced her to continue her research and become their primary supplier of illicit pharmaceutical compounds. Keats admits that he borrowed money from Charles to help Bridget expand her operation, unaware of how deeply she had fallen under the cartel's control.
Keats reveals that everything changed on Bridget's final night at the bar. Charles murdered her in order to seize control of her highly profitable operation, then framed Roy to cover his tracks and solidify his grip on the business. Outside, more militia units arrive as Charles and his men take up positions for a renewed assault on the house. Charles offers the captors a deal: safe passage in exchange for the return of his son, Kyle. The captors accept the deal, and Kyle is released. As he reaches out to his father, he asks whether Charles will honor his promise and allow them to leave unharmed. Charles, however, shows no intention of keeping his word. Kyle vows to report everything to the FBI. In response, Charles signals Silas to take him down and commands the militia to eliminate everyone inside the house, escalating the standoff to a life-or-death confrontation. After a rapid and intense exchange of gunfire, Dr. Keats is struck. In a heroic move, Toby throws himself onto a grenade to protect his friends. Lewis receives a call from Sheriff Ben, instructing her to rescue the children trapped inside the house. Ben returns to the scene to save Grace, taking down several militia members in the process. Charles, defiant and refusing to surrender, leaves Ben with no choice but to take him down as well. Sheriff Ben orders everyone still alive inside the house to leave before the FBI arrives. Grace and Roy emerge, choosing to part ways and go their separate directions. Marissa departs from the lakeside, while Agent Laney destroys her phone and vanishes without a trace. With the chaos settled, Sheriff Ben remains at the scene to provide the FBI with a full account of the events. Thanks for watching.